I'm going to go back into patient. I'm going to pull up Mickey Mouse, type the last name, it'll give you a search list. If you can find Mickey, just double click on it. It'll pull him up. Once you double click on it, you're back to the demographics. Remember earlier we put up an alert message. Well look, I put that alert message to pop up everywhere basically, but also in demographics. And so here's the alert message. Be cautious though of what you put in here, because another doctor will be following behind you, and if you put in something really bizarre in the alert box and they click on the doctor bag and this pops up, the patient may read what you had written. So that's an introduction to CompuLink, and now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of it, which is doing an eye exam. So we're going to click on the doctor bag. We use wide screens for the purpose of seeing as much data as we can. I know you can't read this, but what's important here is that you get a general idea of what it looks like and where things are at. So I'm going to keep it on the wide screen right here for just a few minutes. I don't expect you to read anything, but I want you just to have a sense for what's important. And what's in blue and what's in red is what I consider extremely important. And how we communicate with each other is in the blue. So over on the left hand side over here is a description of the problem for the patient. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. Left hand corner. This is the most critical part of all of the EMR. This is where you put down your assessment and your plan. This is where we communicate to each other as doctors as to what's going on with the patient. Every doctor looks right here. No matter what goes on in the rest of the record, if it's something important and you need to let the other doctor know, or you need it for medical legal reasons or for insurance reasons, it has to be right here. He has a choroidal nevus. If I click on it, there was no assessment and no plan on that choroidal nevus. Phone call to patient. Notice patient doing fine, follow up PRN. And what you can do is you can click down along here. Notice a lot of them don't have anything because this is for demonstration purposes. But under myopia, there's the assessment and plan. Nuclear sclerosis, assessment, plan. And the dates are right here. The ICD codes are right here. And it just scrolls. And you click on whichever one you want to look at. This one says diabetic macular edema. No assessment, no plan. That's not good. You want to put an assessment and plan in there. And it also gives the date. Scrolling to the right is all the chief complaints. So every complaint that the patient had is right here. And you can use the scroll bar on the right hand side. Here is the glasses prescription. You've got the date, OD sphere, seal axis, visual acuity, OD add, OS, sphere, seal, axis, VA, add, type. Is this their final RX? Was it subjective? Was it cycloplegic? What type of refraction was it is in the type. Use, if you told them to use it for a certain reason. Expiration date. Who the doctor was. And then over here is PRISM information if you needed to put any PRISM information. But notice what's most important. On any prescription, the most important thing you need to know is what's their vision. The prescription is important obviously to the patient, but for medical legal reasons, I want to know how well they see. And that's why these are highlighted in blue. So I'll look over to the left on the assessment and plan, and I'll scan over here and look at the visual acuity. And if there's something unusual, then I'll start digging in here and start looking a little more seriously. But the blue is what I look at. I'm going to pull back a little bit. And over to the side down here lower. Oh, in the upper corner here is their next appointment. Down here is the contact lens information. Notice nothing's in blue because it's not really critical. But the date, is it a final prescription, was it trials, the name, sphere, seal, axis, VA, name, sphere, seal, axis, VA, and then the prescriber. Notice the VA isn't highlighted because for medical legal reasons what's most important is the VA of the glasses, not the VA of the contact lenses. Is a flow sheet of the patient's pressures, if they did pachymetry, and this is the CD ratio. Again, this is for demonstration, which is why it hasn't been filled in. You can also click on this and see a flow sheet of it. Over on the left, I'm not going to zoom in, but this right here is the anterior and posterior information for the very last exam. So whatever exam, for whatever reason the patient came in, this is the very last one that's filled in. So you can't rely upon this. You can say, well, what's the date that this was done? It's the last one. What's the date on these are on the sides, but this is for the last exam. And also if the patient's diabetic. I know you can't read these, but I'll just tell you what these are down here. These are if you're scheduling for pachymetry, visual fields, something unusual. If there's a referral letter that you're sending out, something unusual will be right here. Patient phone call. These are action items. If I wanted to make sure that I wanted the patient back in 3 months, remember when I showed you on the demographics the action items? That would pop up right here if there was one. And then finally, signature. I will always look right here at the end of the day to make sure I signed off on the record. It's my name and then that I signed off. This is where you see that you signed off on the patient record. It's on the summary page, down here in the bottom left-hand corner, very tiny, but it's in red, your name, and that it was signed off on. Now if you didn't sign off, obviously it's going to be blank right there. This sign off is for the last exam. So the day of the exam, it's right here. So if I wasn't the doctor that saw the patient 2 times ago, that's okay. It's not going to pop up here a scrolling information of the doctor that was seen. It's just for this exam. If you want to know what other doctors have seen the patient, where you want to look is over here under prescriber. This is where you find all the doctors that have seen the patient, or I should say all the doctors that have prescribed for the patient. Now I'm going to give you a frame of reference where I'm going now. I'm going to go and zoom in and look at this corner right here. It's easy to overlook, but if you want to know what exam you're on, you're going to need to look at this date right here. I wish it was bigger and not sitting right here because it's very small. But this is the date. So you can't see right now, but I'm going to go back in time to a previous exam. And as I scroll back, you can see the date has changed. The only way you're going to know is this exam from today or last month, a year, 2, 3 years ago, is you got to look in this little corner. And it's one thing I dislike about CompuLink is that I think this date should be huge, but it's not. This little box right here you can ignore. Instead of hitting your X to log off, CompuLink prefers that you log off. I'm not going to, but every time you want to log off, it's better to click on this than to hit your X. In my opinion, sometimes the data will not be saved unless you hit log off. So I always click on this. This is for printing, and you don't have to worry about that. This is if you have questions. It's a little help menu. I'm going to